Welcome back. You're watching Daybreak on this second day of September 2025. And I want us to have a conversation, but starting by looking at the dailies, how they are. The Daily Nation talks about Raila fights to rescue Sakaja. That story that we told you about of the impeachment motion that has been supported by more than two-thirds, or rather more than a third of the House. Of course, that is what is required, but the paper is reporting that 87 MCAs have signed the draft motion to impeach the governor, and the two-thirds required to impeach is 82. But obviously, we'll wait to see the consideration of that motion. Ideally, the governor should also be given an opportunity to defend himself, and thereafter he should go to the Senate for trial, just in case the County Assembly agrees with the move of the motion. Now, at the same time, you'll find the story of governors defy Ruto on public tenders system. That is the story that you'll find at the top of the Daily Nation. And it continues on page 6 of the same, saying that a new procurement system is touted as the solution to funds misallocation pending bills. County bosses insist they are not going to absorb UHC medics before national government provides money. And then you find that on schools are sending students home as a state withholds capitation. School heads directed to submit learners unique personal identifier forms. Day schools are bearing the brunt of the financial strain, relying entirely on government funds for the operational costs. And there's some breakdown that you find back on the front page of the Daily Nation about how money has been disbursed to institutions to an extent that out of 22,244 shillings that is required for learners in a whole year for the current academic year, it's only 12,289 shillings that has been paid, just above 50%. That could be about 60% or less. Then on the Standard, the main story is the big economy lie. The Treasury, when Treasury paints a rosy picture with its upbeat forecasts, the truth is that Kenyans are still staring at empty wallets, stalled dreams, and shrinking dignity. And you'll find a bit of analysis inside the paper, including Dennis Kabara, who is an economist, quoted as saying that our very recent GDP numbers are mostly physical capital with some human capital and next to nothing productivity gain. In every language, we have spent the last decade building things, not people. And at the top there, you find putting up a show. Duale DCI smile for cameras in graft war. In studio to help us walk this conversation is Geoffrey Wandeto, Member of Parliament for Oteto constituency. Good morning. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, our viewers. Ken Gishinga is Chief Economist from Mentori Economics. Good morning. Good morning, Sam. We have Senator Hilary Sigei, who is the Senator of Bomet County. He's also the Chairperson of the Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee at the Senate. Good morning. Good morning, Sam, and good morning, our viewers. And we have Kevin Osido, who from the County Governance Watch. Good morning.
Asante sana kwa mwaliko na habari asubuhi. You
want us to use Swahili?
I wouldn't mind, it's in the constitution, but why not?
I think you're too early for someone a citizen, but the conversation continues. And I want us to begin from what you're seeing in the headlines there. Senator, I want to begin with you on that story about Raila fights to rescue Sakaja. Of course, this is a motion that has not even passed in the County Assembly. But lately we are seeing a lot of such coming your way. If you're to look at what was about Governor of Meru, former Governor of Meru now, Kawira Mwangaza, 3 times tried. Then there was the Governor of Isiolo, Abdiguyo. Then there's the Governor of Kericho, who has been in the House for 2 times now. He survived last week. From what you've seen, for the motions that you've considered in the House, and also from what you've been hearing from the county assemblies, what exactly is the issue that we now appear that the conflict can only be resolved through impeachment?
Thank you, Sam. First, it's not, I wouldn't say it's been rampant, but it's now been a regular exercise that we have had to deal with as a Senate. We had Kawira Mwangaza impeached 3 times. She appeared before the Senate 3 times. Governor Guyo appeared once and he was saved. Then Kericho Governor, whose case we dealt with last week. When you look at the cases against them, the charges against them that's coming from, of course, the county assemblies are almost similar. It borders around conflict of interest, corruption, mismanagement of public resources, and abuse of office generally. Now, of course, the impeachment process is a constitutionally provided process when people or public or even county assembly members have lost confidence in the governance of the person who is in office. That is, they resort to that aspect on impeachment. It has its own challenges, definitely, I would say. In the three examples, which are four of them actually, which I've mentioned, all the four governors survived their first appearance before the Senate. And after they survived, of course, Kawira came in second, and the third time is when we ultimately sent home. Common across is the fact that it is a fight between the governors and the county assembly members. That is one common thread that has been experienced in all these impeachment processes.
Right.
But more importantly, Sam, is the fact that we have now picked the aspect. When you look at the first impeachment of Governor Mutai, he survived on a technicality. Similarly, Governor Guyo, same story. And earlier on, in the first impeachment of Kawira Mwangaza, it's the same thing, as an aspect on threshold. The threshold aspect in terms of when we look at even for the case of Sakaja, the law requires a third of the members of the county assembly to sign a petition that takes him or her before the county assembly for trial. Then for an impeachment process to succeed, it must be supported by 2/3 of the members of the assembly. In all this, when you look at critically on a substantive aspect, when threshold is not met, the county assemblies have resorted to just doing it. Because, I mean, in the first appearance of Governor Mutai from Kericho, they had 31. The county assembly of Kericho comprised 47 members, and 2/3 is 32. He definitely had to be lucky to go back home. Same case applies to the latest impeachment. In this case, we've struggled as a house to, when you look at the charges, there are some glaring charges of corruption, which substantively, when you get the opportunity to deal with it, it would warrant an affirmation of the impeachment process. Right. But unfortunately, the process leading to that is now denied the opportunity because of this threshold, which is also legally provided for. And as they say, the process is as good as the outcome. The aspect on technical threshold that is required is substantive in the sense that when you're talking about 50+1, for one to be president of Kenya, then 2/3 or whatever number is so substantive that you cannot ignore it. So in this case, we had the numbers, but unfortunately, the process leading to even that number was mad because of an electronic voter system that was introduced a day before. Some members alleged that they had been voted for, and ultimately, there was doubt in the whole process leading to now him finally surviving by the skin of his teeth. This was the second time. But otherwise, it's one way of governance, which I must say, but we must use it properly. We must use it in compliance with the law, with the procedure, because at the end of it all, there, for instance, in the Kericho impeachment, there were 3 other charges, which, of course, following the evidence that was placed before the House, there were glaring corruption allegations against the governor. Evidence had been produced on some fictitious payments, payments made to contractors who've not worked. And unfortunately, that didn't now get the opportunity.
You didn't get there?
Yes, because of the threshold aspect. And so we're looking at the same thing here. Let's wait and see how Sakaja case will go. We're told that he already has got 87 members of county assembly have signed. The 2/3 to that is 82. So he's got an extra, allegedly. Those who are for impeachment have got above the threshold 5 more MCAs. Let's wait and see how it will go. Unfortunately, this is a quasi-judicial. It is legal-political. So the fact that we're being told even that Raila Odinga has already gotten into it, it might mean that he will be able to manage to convince part of the members of his coalition in the impeachment process to probably pardon the governor. But it's something that we wait and see.
That's interesting.
As a Senate, we are watching.
Okay.
And we've said also the biggest problem that we have with our counties is corruption. It is rampant. It is there, I must say.
Okay. But then, Kevin, I don't know what your experience has been at County Governance Watch. Are we impeaching enough, or we are using politics to manage most of those situations?
Thank you so much, Sam. And true to the fact, what you actually said to the latter is correct, in the sense that what we see happening as County Governance Watch is we are largely using politics to manage impeachment processes, because these are relationship issues that border from the political parties to the leadership of those political parties within the counties. They go all the way to how we engage in our inter-party relations within a county. And because if you look at the MCAs, for example, not all of them come from one unilateral political party. And so there's that sense of politics and how it is being managed, especially with regards to delivery of services based on the promises that the governors gave to the citizens. Because at County Governance Watch, we have something we call the letter to the governor. So normally we allow citizens to engage. So we ask them, if you had 2 minutes with your governor, what is this one thing that you tell them? And they raise concerns around mispromised, promises, lack of adherence to the CIDP, to the ADP, so many things that come up. Number two, of course, Sam, we know that we do not have a law on impeachment, and that is one big issue that I think is really bothering the country, insofar as all these processes are supposed to be guided. And the Senator has talked about, the threshold, so that if we talk about gross misconduct, what is it? What is this thing we are calling gross misconduct? If you talk about abuse of office, what is abuse of office? And where do you begin from? And how far can you go when you say, abuse of office? And if you look at some of the petitions that we receive as County Governance Watch, and even letters, there are many things that if you looked at them from the first hold, you'd say, actually, this is an abuse of office issue. If you fail, for example, to remit somebody's salary, and this is a staff that has worked for the county, it might not be a governor's issue, but it is a governance issue that His Excellency or Her Excellency, the governor, needs to find a way of addressing. So again, many issues that really have to be explained to the citizens and even to the members of County Assembly, not to overbear on their technical capacities to understand, for example, gross misconduct, because some of them we know, the politics and how we do our politics in this country favor some who might not even have the wherewithal to be able to understand, the content of the conversations that are happening in the County Assembly. Right. And then they're the ones that you expect to want to go and, make a final decision on whether somebody is impeached or not. The third thing that we see, and the Senator has actually addressed this, is a threshold for impeachment. What is this threshold? When do we say that an impeachment is clear and that it is right and that it is worth the moment? Because, for instance, right now, the citizens of Nairobi City County are not receiving a number of services. So if you look at, for example, the functions of MCAs by constitution is to enhance and strengthen oversight mechanisms. But if you are engaging in politics of impeachment, when do you begin to ask questions around bad roads? When do you begin to ask questions around, lack of adherence to the budget? The ADP process is just about to begin as we, move on to the next phase of the budget. When will the members of County Assembly sit back and begin to, do the work that they're supposed to be doing? When do they take that time to sit and ask questions of representation in the County Assembly, when you really look at the kind of politics that is going on now related to impeachment? And this is not the first time we are hearing about Governor Sakaja's impeachment. It is only that now we see a lot of energy and strength and oomph. And when you see people like Mheshimiwa Waithera Shege there, MCA for South B, people who are known to never win, I mean, never lose. They always win in certain, strengths that they exert within the assembly. When you see people like Mheshimiwa Robert Alai, and then you talk about Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, and then the face of ODM, you begin to ask yourself, is this the kind of threshold that we need to be talking about when we want to address serious concerns about impeachment? So there are lots of things, and I think for me, Sam, is that we have not learned as a country, because we have very many successful petitions of impeachment or impeachment processes that have been exerted, meted and properly executed. There are governors that have been impeached. Yep. But the question then that begs is, do we really learn from these processes? One thing that we talk about as Kenyans is public participation, because citizens must have their voice in the impeachment of their leader. Does that really bother us? Does it mean anything? And so what is public participation in the impeachment process? So a lot of things that I believe would really will matter, and I think as County Governance Watch, we believe in the voice of the people, and that based on Article 1.1 of the Constitution, this is either exercised, that sovereignty is exercised directly or indirectly. So again, the space of the residents of Nairobi City County, whether those who live here and voted here, or those who live in the diaspora but work here, where is their voice in this impeachment, and what do they see? So again, we'll begin to look at how that voice is exerted, particularly when the motion of impeachment is ultimately placed on the table, and then the space that the citizens are given to be able to speak and be heard.
Okay. All right. And of course, today we're also expecting that two governors, one former, one sitting, will be arraigned in the court of law, and they're facing corruption-related cases, or other charges. Governors Barchok of Bomet County and former governor of Bungoma Wycliffe Wafula Wangamati. Reportedly, they were detained at the Kilimani police station. They're expected to face charges today, hopefully this morning. And Hilary Barchok failed in his bid to block arrest and prosecution of an alleged conflict of interest involving a 2.6 million payment he received from a contractor 4 years ago. That's what the Daily Nation is reporting. And of course, for Wycliffe Wangamati, we are hearing about some 70 million shillings of alleged embezzlement. Mheshimiwa, okay, then because I've already said Mheshimiwa, let me go to Mheshimiwa Ndeto. Because if I say Mheshimiwa Gishinga, I might be in trouble. Mheshimiwa Ndeto, well, there was an impeachment motion that succeeded at the National Assembly and the Senate against former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. And of course, after that, it has been all manner of politics, that it was all politics, is not necessarily for his offenses. So your assessment of the impeachment process as a measure of checking those that are in governance, what have we learned in our 15 years of the new constitution in using that as a tool of oversight?
Okay, thank you, Sam. I think the drafters of the Constitution, it's nice that they put these provisions, because we came from a system where power was unchecked, and it was very, very difficult to basically remove those in power through any form of legal or constitutional means. However, I think what we have learned from the various cases of impeachment that we have seen, those that have either been successful or unsuccessful, is the level, is the use of impeachment, one, as a political tool, either to play our politics, remove who is not wanted, or save who is wanted. The other one is that it has also become an instrument of blackmail.
Yep. A
lot of governors will tell you that they have to do certain things to MCAs. We hear even some places where MCAs have to collect a certain amount of money every end month or every Friday, just for the governor to buy peace. And in fact, this one was amplified in the last devolution conference. I remember the chair of the Council of Governors saying being a governor is like walking a landmine. On this one side, you have MCAs who every day are threatening to impeach you. Then, of course, you have the legal system where all manner of things are being brought against you. So I think to some extent, the impeachment process has been used to settle political scores, as opposed to being an instrument of accountability. But however, I like where, certain MCAs have come forward to call out or to use this process to call out certain governors. If I use the example of Nairobi, I don't think you don't need any genius to understand that Nairobi currently is in a total mess. I mean, we voted with a lot of hope, but if you look at what the city has become, really, it is not difficult to see that actually, the governor of Nairobi is actually performing, below par. Yep. We still have issues, the unresolved issues of garbage. We still have the unresolved issues of water. We still have potholed roads in this country, despite the county being one of the biggest revenue earners and also receiving the biggest share of national government funds. I have said it in this forum, Sam, that...
Sorry, it's not share of national government. National revenue.
National revenue. So I've said it in this forum, Sam, many times, that I am a very big supporter of devolution. This was like a masterstroke, the people who drafted the Constitution. But unfortunately, the only thing we seem to have successfully devolved has been corruption. That one we were successful. If we were to give ourselves a scorecard of whether we devolved health properly, whether we devolved water services properly or whatever, the only thing that was devolved successfully is actually corruption. And if we are then to look at corruption as then the trigger for impeachment, some of the people who are already in EACC radar and whatever, some of them are sitting pretty in their offices. Then you see a few governors that that are now being taken around by their MCAs, maybe as a result of blackmail. But my other question is, right now there's a huge clamor led by Raila Odinga to give counties more funds. Yep. CDF, KERA funds, and if you look at this environment, I don't know whether we can be able to trust our governors with any other additional funds. So Raila Odinga, again, jumping into the Sakaja debacle, I think is one more mistake. He seems to be making a lot of missteps in the recent past. The first one being a CDF, the second one, refusing Senate to hold governors accountable. Now he's jumping into the, into the Nairobi county fray. I think, again, we see him underwriting, if such a word, his very many years of, legacy for good governance.
He's not here to defend himself. It's just a report that is on the Daily Nation that Mr. Odinga has held 2 meetings with Nairobi MCAs or assembly leaders to prevail upon them to convince the MCAs to drop impeachment plan. But I'm just wondering, Ken, if, because yes, I remember Governor Ahmed Abdullahi saying that the governors have to buy their peace, and he was referring to a colleague who confided in him. Well, confiding and then saying it in public. But if a governor is innocent, what are they so bothered about having to treat the MCAs? And I don't know whether the same happens at the Senate. Ken?
Many thanks, I think we have to look at the political economy of our elections. And Kenyan elections and Kenyan politics is a very high-stakes game. We are told to be a governor, you need somewhere between 100 million to maybe even $500 million to become a governor. So we have a very high stakes, very expensive process to get into power, because there's a promise that once you get into that office, you'll be able to have much more control. And Sam, I'll remind you of an example in Germany, in Berlin. In fact, right now, in the month of September, we have the Berlin Marathon. And I remember about 2-3 years ago, when Kipchoge was in his prime, and there was that expectation that he'll break the world record. On that same Sunday was a German presidential election, but there was more attention on whether Kipchoge will break the marathon than the winner of the German election. Now compare that to Kenya, where we are literally 2 years away from elections. Yet, if a visitor came to Nairobi, he'd actually believe elections is around the corner. So the fact that we have very high-stakes elections means that the money that is required to run into these offices is quite significant. Now, once you are in those offices, you've spent your almost $500 million.
Right.
there is an expectation that now you have to recoup how much you spend. So you have three actors in this, in the county level. You have the citizens who are expecting service delivery. You have the MCAs who have to respond to the citizens. Then you have the executive that also has to meet its own objectives because of how it got into power. And I think those three essentially come into conflict. And to maintain that, it means now more power, more money has to be spent. And that's why a few weeks ago we saw the president saying there's too much corruption both in parliament and at the county level. So I think the cure has to be at the political level, at the political party level. How do political parties rise to power without necessarily having a future where they'll be blackmailed? And I don't see political parties investing in ideas, enough ideas to persuade people that we need to get into power. We may not have the 10,000 to give you in every meeting, but if you put us into power, we'll be able to deliver ABCD. I don't see enough political parties doing that. And thus they follow the traditional model. And 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road, they are blackmailed. And they're told, you know, as you made your bed, so must you lie on it. So I think we have to go back to the political party process and say, are there political parties that are looking at ways of getting into power without dishing out money? Until we cure that, I think we'll always end up in this vicious cycle where you spend and later on you're blackmailed and you are ejected. Of course, there have been instances where it's been a bit different, but that has been the recurring theme over the last few years.
Right. Interesting. And of course, as we speak about this, the governors also expressing themselves. They do not want the e-government procurement system because it is stalling things that they say they are unable to procure even essential commodities like medicine. And we'll be talking about that after the short break when we come back, because on this side, some of them are facing impeachment. They're being troubled by MCAs. Some are in court, but at the same time, they are rejecting the e-government procurement system that the National Treasury says is going to streamline and avoid corruption at all levels of procurement. Stay tuned.